Can you guys see the screen with the slides? Yes. Okay, cool. Just give it another minute and then we'll get started. All right, I'll get started. I think we're going to have a small crew today, which is totally fine. If you guys have any questions as I'm going through this, it's a little, things are always a little awkward virtually where we can't interact as easily. But if you have any questions, feel free to jump in, turn your mic on, or just type anything into the chat here as well. And then at the end, I'll allow some questions as well. So let's get started. So real quick about me. Born and raised here in the area. I have my career path here. It's really just to serve as an example to kind of demonstrate that I had no previous background in real estate whatsoever before I got started. I didn't know anything about houses. I didn't know anything about buying houses. I had no one in the family, in my family, in the business whatsoever. I was actually a musician for 5 years, just teaching lessons and performing around the city. So totally unrelated. Kind of stumbled upon it. I won't bore you with the story, but in my first year, I did cap with the brokerage. I did a little bit under 4 million in volume. Again, this is just to show you don't need to have connections prior to do well. And now I am coaching new agents on my team, which is Venture Philly. And I don't think I actually introduced myself. My name is Scott, Scott Sepkowicz. I'm on the Venture Philly team, and I coach any new agents that we have on the team as well. So to me, there's two important things when you get started in real estate. One is going to be education, and then two is going to be establishing yourself as a realtor to your sphere, to your circle, to everybody that you know. So it's education and establishing yourself. So on that first note, education, first year, is really going to be about learning and not so much about money. Of course, we all have, our livelihood and we need to make money to live. But I think the best option is to err on the side of education versus taking a quick buck, because you'll be planting the seeds for the future better that way. So don't be afraid to make any mistakes. Don't be discouraged if you do. A lot of it's going to feel overwhelming in the beginning. There's so much to learn. I think even super experienced agents that have been in the industry for decades are still learning. They always say every transaction, every deal has a learning, has a lesson to be learned. Every transaction is different. So like I said, don't be overwhelmed. Don't feel overwhelmed. Don't be discouraged if you make any mistakes. It's going to happen. Embrace it and see it as a learning lesson. Make sure you dive in. So what I mean by that is don't wait for the right time. A lot of people, I feel like, get their license and then they kind of just stay in the background. Like they feel like they don't know enough to, have conversations with people. But we call that being a secret agent in KW. You don't want to be like that, because it's really just fear and anxiety that's kind of creeping in and speaking for you. Do everything right now. Dive in, get your hands dirty. Start telling people what you do, start announcing it, and start working. Like do showings or host open houses, do some agent previews, and we'll get into that a bit later. But don't be afraid to put yourself out there right away and ask a lot of questions. I'm famous for that, and I feel like that's how I learned a lot in the beginning. There's so many experienced agents. We have almost 500 agents at our brokerage that you can ask questions to, who have seen it all. So don't be afraid to ask people for help. We have a very open, family-oriented culture here, so people are always willing to help. Mentorship is super important. It's kind of like what I was just talking about. Um, I think for me, I joined a team right off the bat. Venture Philly. We were previously called Attican Group. My team leader was actually he founded the brokerage before Gaurav was the OP. Gaurav actually bought it from my team leader. His name is Antonio, who started it I guess 12 years ago or so now. So he's a really good mentor to have because he literally started the business, and he's been in the market in the real estate business for almost 20 years now. So I highly suggest joining a team, especially in the beginning, to learn, because your team is also going to cover expenses and stuff. So in the beginning, when you're not doing business right away because you're still establishing yourself, it's going to really help to not have a lot of expenses. So they'll typically, every team is different, but they'll typically pay for any of your marketing, like open house stuff, business cards, signs, Facebook ads or whatever kind of ads you guys are doing, maybe even some CRM programs. So there's a lot of advantages. And then you're also probably going to have, you might even get leads from your team as well, especially when you're first, starting out. That's super helpful. And then there's also pro coaching. Pro coaching did not exist when I started. However, I hear that they do get good results. That's with Will and Mike Rosani and Will Roy. That's for solo agents who want to be coached as well. I would reach out to them if you're interested in that. You can also reach out to Brandon, our team leader, who would be happy to connect you with any potential teams or the pro coaches as well, based on fit. We also have every quarter, maybe, I forget if it's every month or every quarter, we have we call it Dolphin Tank, Gaurav calls it. And it's like a job fair, but for teams, basically. So you get to meet all the different teams and team leaders and learn about what they like to focus on and see what's a fit. And that's another opportunity to network with potential teams. I would suggest taking as many classes as you possibly can. Classes are going to slow down in December, but they'll start up again in January. We typically have a couple every day, especially when we weren't restricted with COVID. We had a lot of in-person classes. When I started, there were maybe like 3 a day. I felt like I was in school again. Highly recommend, especially the agreement of sale class with Vicky Carey, our broker of record. The agreement of sale is like going to be your real estate holy Bible, where you're going to really want to study it as much as you can and really understand how it works, because it's, you're going to be using it so much, and you need to understand the different tools that are, built into the contract to be able to structure your offers in creative ways and to know about different rules and stuff. So I would literally study that a bunch, the agreement of sale, and the class is a good head start that Vicky Carey teaches, but take as many as possible. That's what I did. Couple book recommendations here that I just find useful. The MREA, if you haven't heard of it, you will, because it's kind of like the Keller Williams Bible. It stands for Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and it's written by Gary Keller Williams. He founded the company. It's kind of just, it's maybe it's a little bit old now, but it's still pretty relevant. All the models, it's a very practical book. It's not as much philosophical as practical, with actual action items that you can take to help grow your business. They're actually coming out with an updated version. I'm not sure if it's out yet or if it's coming soon, but I would still definitely read that first one. It'll give you great insight. There's also a Millionaire Real Estate Investor, MREI, same author, Gary Keller. It's a little bit more investor focused. But I actually recommend that second bullet there. The book on rental property investing is a really good one for pure beginners, or even if you're experienced. The language is really easy to understand, and it's really simply put, with real examples of how investors think. I think it's just important to be able to know the investment side of things, even if you don't plan on working with investors. When you're working with buyers and sellers, there's elements of there's investment elements in all transactions, right? Like when you're buying a house, there's an element of it where there's financial investment involved, right? So it's always good to know how these people think, and it'll make you sound like you know more of what you're talking about as well when you're starting. And then there's a third recommendation here that I just like. This is not a real estate book. It's just a general like self-development book, but I think it's really good for sales and for people skills in general, self-awareness, how to win friends and influence people. It's probably the most famous self-development book of all time. It's written in like maybe the 19 teens or 1920s, but it's still relevant to today. The chapters are all like 2 pages long, super easy read. And it sounds like a scammy title, but it's just, I think that's just how they branded things back in the day. But I definitely recommend that one. That's one of my favorites. And I feel like it kind of allows you to like look inside and reflect. And I mean, they call it self-development. So it's just a great self-development book. And then scripts, always good to know different responses for different objections you're going to get. There's tons of stuff you can practice. Like you can literally just Google or YouTube real estate scripts, and you'll find a bunch of info. Keller Williams site, we have somewhere in the resources, there's for agents, there's a section on scripts. There's also the Keller Williams classes sometimes go into scripts. Like if you take Ignite, I know that, or Bold, I know that there's definitely scripts there. But scripts really, I think the important thing with them is not to think of them as canned responses that you need to memorize. It's more the idea that you want to internalize of the scripts and put into your own words, because you want to sound natural when you speak to people. You want to be able to, handle any objection that someone has without sounding like a salesperson, because we all know, like we can all detect when someone is being salesy with us. You don't want to be salesy. Real estate already has, I mean, if we're honest, it has a pretty bad reputation. It's kind of one rung above used car salesman, right? So you want to stand out by being authentic, and we'll get into that actually in a couple slides. But practice your scripts. There's a ton of resources for sure. Some people have script buddies where they just practice going back and forth with each other, handling objections, and it kind of desensitizes you to rejection as well. I think it's important to seem passionate about what you do. I think people really connect with that, and they really appreciate it when it seems like you love what you do and you're not just going through the motions. Learn as much about the city as you can. You're in a way, you're kind of selling. Philly is kind of your product, right? Or I don't know, maybe some of you are going to be working in the suburbs and stuff, but especially if you're focused in the city, like your product is, the city itself. So try to stay on top of the pulse of the city. Try to figure out what's going on. Like what are people building? Where are their new projects? Have an idea of different like hot spots in different neighborhoods, like restaurants that people like, nightlife, museums, anything like that. Just try to learn about the city as much as you can, like the neighborhoods and where they kind of cut off, and a lot of geographical studying there. But I think it helps for sure, because it makes you sound like an expert. Especially if you're just starting, it makes it sound like you've been all over the city and you work a lot. You can subscribe to, one idea is subscribing to different newsletters for this kind of information. So one of them is called Plan Philly. You can sign up, and they basically, like Plan Philly, for example, will give you updates on different projects that are announced in the city, stuff's going on, development. There used to be a really good one called Curbed Philly, which is temporarily like shut down. I don't know if they're coming back, but I hope they do. They were really good with that kind of stuff. But anything like that, I would subscribe to, so you get news alerts and stay on top of what's going on. And look like you're having fun. Like when you're, if you're posting stuff to social media, especially, look like you love what you do. Super important, we kind of talked about this, is to be authentic. Just be yourself. I think the number one enemy to success in this industry is going to be being salesy, in my opinion, and being just like a salesperson. I like to say, be hungry, but not thirsty. So don't seem desperate, in other words, when you're talking to people, but be hungry in the fact that you want to work hard for them and you want to be successful, and that you have their back. But again, don't come across as a desperate salesperson. So I have a couple of don'ts and do's and don'ts here. Like I said, don't be stereotypical robotic salesperson. So speak naturally, speak authentically. Don't try to think of like how to say things the perfect way. Like, it's okay to be human, because you're just going to sound robotic otherwise. Don't BS people just to make a sale. Don't pressure people just to make a sale. And don't be boring on social media. Instead, like I said, be honest. On social media, show interesting things, tell interesting stories. And I'm harping on social media a lot because nowadays it's a huge source of many agents' success. A lot of people are going to be seeing that, a lot of people are going to find out that you're an agent through social media because you're going to be posting about it. And that's going to be a large part of how they find out. And you want to show things that are interesting. Like when I'm hosting an open house or doing showings, I'll usually take pictures or video, maybe of like a cool roof deck view or like a really cool antique like layout or something, or some kind of architecture on like a house. People are interested in that stuff. It may seem boring, but there's a reason that HGTV is a TV station. Like, people actually are really into houses and stuff like that, especially if they're aspiring to buy one day. Be willing to move at other people's pace instead of pressuring them. Don't come across as desperate. Like, whatever pace they're moving at, you have to be okay with. You have to be okay with delayed gratification. You might not make a sale today, but maybe it's in a year from now, but that's okay. Like, otherwise you're going to push those people away if you try to rush them. And be human. I keep saying it, just be human, be human, be human, be human. Don't be a salesperson. So my best lead sources, for my first year, this is going to be varied for everyone, but open houses for sure was my bread and butter. It's a little tough right now with COVID restrictions, but people are still going to open houses. They still are hosting them, because a lot of people don't realize this, but anyone coming into an open house is either someone that is looking to buy a house, interested in buying a house, or a nosy neighbor who potentially is a home seller. There's a reason they're being nosy about it. They probably want to know what they can get for theirs, right? So everyone that comes in is a lead, really. It's unless they have an agent already. But a lot of people coming to open houses are first-time home buyers, especially, and a lot of them don't have agents yet. So I started by hosting at least 2 per weekend when I started, which sounds annoying. People want to relax on the weekend, but it's just part of the job. We don't work typical 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, so I think that we can handle a couple hours during Saturday or Sunday. It doesn't even feel like work. You're honestly there, and you're typically in a pretty cool house. You can take pictures for social media. You're talking to people. Like, it's not like you're filing paperwork or something. So I did 2 per weekend. I would do 1 Saturday, 1 Sunday. Some people do 4. Some people do 2 a day. It's just, the more people you meet, the better. The more conversations you have, the better. And then what I do at the open houses is I'll follow up as soon as possible. Sometimes I'll do it during the open house, even if I can. You want to strike while the iron's hot. You don't want to let it sizzle out. If I can't do it during, I'll immediately after start doing my follow-ups. And what I usually do is I like to be direct and right to the point. Like, I want to be helpful. I don't want to be salesy. And so what I do is I'll, let's say we have a conversation and I find out that they want to buy a house in Fishtown with like 3 beds and a cool backyard or something. I'll find on the MLS, which is called Bright MLS. I don't know if you guys are on there yet, but on the MLS, I'll find them some houses that are listed that might fit the bill, and I'll send it to them. Like, I'll text them over to them, or I'll email it over to them right away. I kind of skip the whole like buyer appointment process, and I probably KW gods probably don't want me to say that, but I kind of just skip that. And I think think people don't want to be bothered as much nowadays, especially like younger generation. They just want to see like, they want to be given info that's directly helpful to them. So I don't do a separate buyer consultation. I kind of indirectly do it at the open house. I'll chat with them and find out what they want and send them what they want right after. And I'll say, always have a direct question at the end of your follow-ups. Say like, do you want to see, which of these homes do you want to see? I'm free on Thursday after 2 or Friday before 5. Like, give them a couple of options and try to set up right there. Like, let's set up some showings. Instead of, and I'm saying that instead of leaving the ball in their court, don't say like, let me know if you want to see these. Like, try to ask more direct questions and do the legwork for them of trying to schedule it as well, by giving them some options. So that's what I tend to do. You can also send them like if you have a home buyer's guide that you've created, or another great follow-up excuse after an open house is if they are pre-approved or not. You need a pre-approval letter from a lender unless they're paying cash, but you need a pre-approval letter to make an offer on the house and to know what your budget is, right? A lot of people don't have that right away. They don't realize it's free either. And so what you can do is you can connect these people with a lender. We have 3 lenders in our office alone that you can connect them with and set up conversations and get that kick started for them. And that's, that is helpful right there. So that's another excuse to follow up with someone with, a real, I don't want to say excuse, but a real reason to be helpful and follow up with someone. So like my last bullet point in the open house section says come from contribution. What I mean by that is contribute something helpful like that. Instead of just saying, hey, I wanted to follow up, try to give them something. So a connection to a lender, a new listing that popped up that they might be interested in, try to give them something of value. In other words, during the open house, while you're talking to them, just try to connect. Just try to, just have a conversation, get to know them a bit, and ask smart questions to try to learn about their goals. And this takes practice. It's not going to be smooth right off the bat. It's going to feel awkward at first a little bit, but you want to learn. Typically what I try to do is, so when someone comes in, I'll say, hey, like, thanks for coming. How'd you guys hear about the open house? And this is usually, this is my indirect way of finding out if they have an agent or not. Because if they do have an agent, they'll usually say, oh, our agent sent us and we're just kind of doing a tour of opens. Otherwise, they'll say something like, oh, we were walking by, or we saw it on Zillow, we saw it on Redfin. So that's how I usually start. I'll ask if they're from the neighborhood or not. Regardless of their answer, if they're from the neighborhood, I'll follow up with like, oh, is the idea to move here into the neighborhood? Or if they already are there, is the idea to stay here in the neighborhood? And you just kind of, without prying too much, you kind of, respectfully just ask, oh, like, so are you guys looking like for a 2-bed, 3-bed? What's your, you can ask about their timeline. Like, are they renters? Do they have to like break a lease? You can also find out about their budget. You can that can be a little testy, but you can say something like, are you looking around this price range? Like as in the house that they're currently at. And then you can kind of segue that into the pre-approval conversation as well. And then I try to end the conversation with like, hey, like if I come across any listings that might fit the bill, do you mind if I send them your way? Usually they'll say, yeah. You can also offer to send them like off-market properties that you hear of, like coming soon properties. And, you can find those out. Like we have a Facebook group, our brokerage, where we can just, people post all the time like, hey, does anyone have anything coming up in Fishtown, 3 beds under 500,000? So you actually can find out about coming soon properties that way. So the long story short, you just want to connect with them and find out as much as you can so that you can actually send them listings. This is if it's a buyer lead. So I usually want to know, well, how many beds are they looking for? How many baths? What their price range is, and what the location they're looking is. That's all you really need to know. In general, you can find out a little bit more after they're done looking through the house. Which, by the way, don't follow them around the house. Just meet them at the entrance again. Let them go through on their own. You can ask them for feedback. You can just be like, hey, like, what did you think? Like, I usually say you can be totally honest. It's not my listing. Not going to hurt my feelings. And then you learn more that way too. So they might say like, oh, like, the kitchen was a little small. We cook a lot. So then that they want something with a big kitchen, for example, right? And as soon as they leave, I'll try to jot down as much notes as possible so that I don't forget, because you might be meeting a lot of people and it's all going to blend together. Like even if they say they have a dog who's wearing a sweater with something on it. I don't know, like everything that seems even unimportant, I'll write down just so I can remember it later. And I've also had conversations with people that were not even related to real estate. Like we'll literally just talk about like, I don't know, sports or like something unrelated to real estate. And you kind of, just because we built a connection and rapport, they were willing to work with me. Because, they felt, I think it's important. I think people want to work with people that they like. Either way, just have a feel for the conversation, either get right to the point with real estate or just connect with them on a social level. So that's all open house related stuff. Long story short, I recommend doing as much as you can, especially in the beginning. It's going to be tricky during COVID, but the more people you meet, the better. At worst, you at least get to take pictures and video that you can post on social media to help grow your presence and remind people of what you do. Which segues into my next point, which is social media was my second best lead source. I try to post every day on, I use Instagram. I'll cross post things on Facebook as well, but Instagram is where I get most of my people. I'm usually just posting stories, which are the 24-hour posts that they disappear in 24 hours. They're not like permanently on your page. And it's just kind of like a day in the life type posts usually. So, maybe I'm doing showings or I'm putting an offer in or I'm hosting an open house. Like I'll post as much as I can. The goal is to stay top of mind with your sphere of influence. It's not to sell people things. It's not to get leads like right away. It's to remind people that you're in real estate so that, maybe not now, maybe they're not looking to buy a place now, or they don't know anyone looking to buy a place now. But if that comes up in the future, they have a friend that says, oh, we're thinking about buying a house. They'll think like, oh, wait, I know I have a friend that's actually in real estate. Like I can connect them with you. Or, if they themselves are looking to buy or sell, they'll think of you. So again, the goal is just to make it so they think of you when they think of real estate. You want them to associate it with you. Which was in the very beginning of these slides was my second point about, after education, the number 2 most important thing is going to be establishing yourself in this business. Because all of a sudden, when I first started, I wasn't getting too many messages about real estate. I wasn't getting too many people reaching out. But like about a year in, all of a sudden, like it seems like it's almost like routine. Like I'll have like 1 or 2 people every month reach out saying, hey, we want to buy a house, or hey, my mom wants to buy a house, can you help her? It's a slow burn, a slow churn, but you're planting the seeds now for the future and it'll pay off. You just got to be patient. I would also mix personal things with your real estate posts as well. You don't want to seem like you're just a business page. I think the ratio that they recommend, whoever they is, the ratio that's recommended is about 3 personal things to every 1 real estate related post. It's just a rule of thumb, not a hard rule, of course. But on that note, a lot of people ask what I think of like making a separate real estate page from their personal page. I am heavily on the side of mixing it with your personal page because your sphere is already on there. A lot of people aren't going to, follow your new page. They don't want to deal with it sometimes. So like, your people are already on your personal page. Just stay with that. And, it's not weird to post about your business on your personal page because whether you realize it or not, you're a business owner now. As a realtor, you are a business owner, and, that's part of your life now, and it's your passion, right? So, you should be posting about it, and there's no shame in that. Just I think if you start to get salesy, it will be a little shameful. So keep it fun, keep it light, and it just, again, you're not selling things, you're just reminding people what you do. It's just day in the life posts. Yeah, let me think. I think on open houses, I wanted to give one more point. I've actually converted a couple leads who, on the point of striking while the iron's hot, I've actually had a couple people that wanted to look, see a couple places, but I was obviously hosting the open house, so I couldn't show it to them. What I'll do is I'll say, like, hey, like, so I'll give you a real example. This was the first lead that I convert. So this is the first lead I converted that was not someone I knew or not a lead from my team. These two people came into my open house, and they really liked it, but they really wanted a fireplace, and they didn't have the fireplace in this one. But, and this is a really good thing to do when you're hosting an open house, I previously researched like comps, like similar active properties that were also for sale. And I knew of one down the block for the same price that did have the fireplace. And I told them about it, and this, by the way, makes you sound very knowledgeable when you can just off the top of your head be like, oh, there's a place down the block that has a fireplace. And I said, hey, like, I'm here till 3, but when I don't know what you're doing after this, but if you want, I could show it to you right when I'm done. And they actually, they weren't doing anything. So they were like, okay, sure. So I showed it to them. They loved it. And we put an offer in. And they eventually went to settlement. So always strike while the iron's hot and be aggressive with your availability. I think a really important thing is to be available to people. Answer them quickly, get back to people quickly, be available sometimes same day if you can. So these are my best lead sources. Your best lead sources, I have no clue. Everyone is different, but you got to go out and try stuff before you find out, right? So some other ideas, networking in general, the more people you know, the better you're going to do. So I find that the more people, the really successful people in real estate tend to just like know the most people. They tend to have like really good connections. They're not necessarily the best agents, but they have great connections. It's a numbers game. The more people you meet and the more conversations you have about real estate, the more business you're going to do. Some people do door knocking, which is literally they'll knock on doors and give them some neighborhood statistics maybe. Don't do it now with COVID. I would say it's a big no-no, but once that's relieved, that is an option. Some people cold call. You can cold call expired listings and ask, find out what happened. Like, are they still interested in selling? Why did they think it didn't sell? See what value you can add. Some people call for sale by owner listings, and same deal. They can say, maybe you have buyers looking for similar properties, or, you try to, there's a lot of scripts for that. I think it's outside the scope of this class, but they'll call expireds and for sale by owner listings. I think joining a neighborhood association is a really good idea too. It's pretty cheap. I think mine was like $20 for the year. And a lot of people in those associations tend to be really in tune with the neighborhood. Obviously, a lot of them tend to be homeowners and really involved with what's going on, and they know like who's selling, who's buying. It's just a good connection to have. You can join clubs, you can join sports. There's even online forums you can post in. So like Bigger Pockets, if you guys haven't heard of that, it's probably the most popular forum for real estate investors. It's called biggerpockets.com. A lot of people post on there. I've actually posted on Reddit before, on like the Philadelphia Reddit. I'll post, like, some people will be like, hey, I'm moving into Philly. Any advice? And I'll post it. I'll say I'm a realtor, and I'll get messages like months later saying, hey, I found this post. You said you're a realtor. Like, can you help me out? And I've actually done some business through there. So you just got to be creative. And the more conversation, I'm going to keep saying this, the more conversations you have, the better you're going to do. My last point here is going to be about following up. To me, follow-up is the most important thing to be consistent about. Use your CRM. CRM is just your customer relationship management software. For most of you, it's going to be KW Command, and it's just where you keep track of all your people's. My team uses Follow Up Boss as well as Command. It's just another one. Some people just use pen and paper. Some people use Excel sheet, but always use it to always set follow-up tasks with any lead you have. Even if they're like totally not interested, I still put a follow-up task for them. Maybe it's like a year later. Maybe in a year, I'll say, hey, like, how's it going? I'll check in with them. Maybe update them on the market, yada, yada, yada. So I find that texting nowadays is going to get more responses than email. Email is getting very spammy, even texting, but it's not quite there yet. But texting for sure, I find gets me more responses, and calling too. Some people will pick up still and answer. I think calling can be better than email. I'll call if I'm just having a tough time getting in touch with someone. Come from contribution. We talked about this already. Trying to give them something. When I follow up, I'm showing them, hey, a new listing popped up. Like, do you want to see it this Friday? Or you can send them a home buyer's guide. You can connect them to a lender so they can get pre-approved. You could talk to them about a new development in the city just to give them like a cool update. And there's a script for everything. There's always a response to any objection. Even if someone is not interested, you can ask for referrals for the future. Say, okay, that's great. Like if you know anyone else that's looking to buy or sell, please send them my way. I like to say that my business is 100% referral based and word of mouth, because a lot of people don't realize how the business works. And it's going to be your job to kind of educate your people on your sphere, on the fact that you are a business owner. You're not just an employee getting free leads and getting free business. Like your business works on word of mouth and referrals. So it's really important that people understand that. I think another thing that I found in the beginning that people didn't know that really helped me get business is that working with a buyer agent, for the most part, is completely free. So they don't know that we are paid by the listing side, and that it's literally free representation. There's no reason to not have an agent. So that's another thing to put PSAs out there about I would usually do it on like social media. And if you haven't already, by the way, I would announce on social media as soon as you get your license, if you haven't gotten it yet, or if you have already gotten it, that you're now, announce that you're now in real estate with Keller Williams. Make a big post, and maybe put your headshot in like a picture, and close it with, if you guys know anyone looking to buy or sell, please send my way. My business is 100% referral based and word of mouth. And when people post these, they usually get a lot of comments, a lot of congratulations, and it kind of, it pops up on everyone's feed because there's a lot of comments and stuff. So it's a great way to get started. And, a lot of people actually get messages like, hey, we're actually looking to buy, like, I'll message you, so definitely do that if you haven't already. And then my last points here with following up: be human. I keep saying that. I try to make it obvious that it's not a robot that's texting them. I'll put lowercase letters where normally you would put uppercase. I'll put emojis sometimes. Sometimes I'll send multiple messages in a row. What I mean by that is, like, I'll say like, hey, like this listing just popped up on 123 Main Street. Like, it actually looks like, it has a really backyard like you guys were looking for your dog. Do you want, and there's a 10-year tax abatement or something like that. And I'll send that message. And then maybe a couple minutes later, I'll say, let me know I'm free this Friday at afternoon if you want to see it. And I'll kind of, the fact that it's like multiple messages, like, and I'm talking about text messages, it makes it to me more human, because I feel like a bot just sends one giant thing, and people talk more like, text send. So I'll do that. I'll try to be goofy and fun when it's appropriate. I tend to have a goofy personality. It's all up to, obviously everyone's going to be a little bit different here. And then the second bullet point here, I have a stupid joke, but I'm basically just saying, keep it short. The shorter the better. People are bombarded all the time with things. The easier you make their life, the better the chances are that you're going to get a response. So I try to keep it literally like 1 or 2 sentences. I try not to ask more than one question. I find that if once you ask a second question, you don't get a response. People are just lazy like that. So keep it short, get it to the point. You don't have to put any fluff in there. Just, get down to business, send them a listing, ask them if they want to see it, And by the way, when I send listings, I don't know how many of you are acquainted with Bright MLS yet, but what you do is you set up it's called a auto search, and you put it on concierge mode. This is outside the scope of this. I don't want to get too much into it, but once you figure out how to do that, concierge mode, you'll get alerts that say, hey, new listing alert for, Mary Johnson or whatever. And you can go in and hit approve or reject. And if you approve it, it'll get emailed to her. If you reject, it just goes in the trash. This is so that they don't get a bunch of like shitty listings sent their way. But what I'll do is sometimes I'll actually copy the link to the listing itself and put it in a text or in an email. So it looks like it's coming from me directly and not via Bright MLS. Because when you send it through Bright, it looks like it's kind of automated. It's not from your email. So I'll do that as well to make it seem like it's me. And my last point here is you're going to, this is still sales. So you're going to get rejected. You're going to get ghosted. People are going to disappear. You're going to get bitched out, cursed out a million times. Don't take it personally. It doesn't matter. People are rejecting the opportunity. They're not rejecting you. It's basically their way of saying, now's not the right time, or I'm not ready now. I'm not looking to buy. And that's totally fine. As much as you want to be human, you're still going to be just a realtor to them, a salesperson. Unfortunately, people aren't always polite without, forget there's a human on the other side of things. But it's okay. Don't be discouraged if it happens. Expect it to happen. It will happen. If you get 1 out of 1,000 people to respond to you, great. Like, it hopefully pays off. So that's all I got. I'd like to open up this to some questions. I have my email, my phone, if you ever want to get in touch. Instagram. Feel free to follow me. You can get an idea of how I tend to use my social media. I have my social security number here in case you want to steal my identity. And yeah, like if anyone has any questions, now's the time to ask anything at all, anything that I maybe didn't go over, or anything. No bad questions. I was talking for a long time, so I hope someone gives me a break here and gives me a question. Nothing at all? All right, well, if you guys think of anything, send it my way. Instagram, you can email me.
Hey, Scott, I actually have a question. How are you?
How's it going?
Good. So with the new restrictions that we have in Philly, that I don't know if you got a chance to see it happen during this conference. Okay. Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice as someone who is just starting out in this climate? What's your plan, and what can we do?
Yeah. So for real estate, it's not really affecting much, believe it or not. So when you're doing it's really just when you're doing showings, you have to have you all wear masks. Some people are wearing gloves and stuff too. And some people supply hand sanitizer. I think the rule is 3 people at a time, technically, in a property. So you and like 2 clients, for example, showing it. To be honest, like once they opened real estate up, at first it was completely banned. You couldn't do anything real estate related for like a few months, couple months. As soon as they opened up, it was just booming. Like I felt like it was just all day showings and, people reaching out and answering emails. It was crazy. So like, it's honestly not affecting the market too much. And, even if it does, like, even if maybe the market comes down a little bit because people aren't able to keep up with their mortgage, like, as shitty as a situation as that is, it's people are going to probably be selling and listing their house. Like it was a buyer frenzy previously. It may become a seller frenzy, which is still, business for you guys. And people are always going to be moving. So,
sure.
It really hasn't affected it as much as I thought it would. It's just like the way you go about things with like the safety protocols is all that's really changed. And I guess the open house situation, it's a little less traffic for sure coming to open houses. Does that kind of answer your question, or were you wondering about other things? Or
no, that definitely helps. I'm kind of trying to like go into more of like the rental market, and so I just don't. It's hard to predict whether people are going to go to school.
That's true. I would there's a class that I don't know if you went to it yet. That Boots Levinson. Okay. Yeah, Boots is like the rental guy. Yeah, and by the way, that kind of reminded me, just so you guys know, right now it would be considered a seller's market in Philly, which is good to know when you're talking to people. What that means is there's low inventory. There's not a lot of houses for sale. But at the same time, rates are historically low for buyers. So there's a lot of people looking to buy houses. So you combine the two things, you can imagine a lot of people trying to buy very few houses. It's going to drive prices up, and you're going to have a lot of offers. Most places, if they're priced right, are going to sell for at or over asking price because of the way the market is. Now it's softening a little bit. Things tend to be real slow during the holidays. So don't get discouraged if you feel like you're doing very little business, because a lot of people just don't want to move during Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that stuff. So this year, things picked up like crazy all of a sudden in January, and it's been crazy ever since. But it was super slow in November, December. But don't let it discourage you. Just use this time now to plant the seeds in people's heads that you're a realtor, that you're in real estate. Rates are still historically low. When I started, rates were around this was like 2 years ago. Rates were like often people were getting over 5%. Now people are getting like 2.5% to 3%, which is it's crazy low. So although it's a seller's market, it's still a good time for a buyer because they're going to lock in for 30 years, like a really, really low rate. So it's really good for both sides right now. But it is technically a seller's market because inventory is low. Just wanted to add that. So any other questions? Anything at all? Okay. Well, if anyone thinks of one, like I said, feel free to email me, text me. You can follow me on Instagram, send me a message there. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. I never know when I'm just talking, but I wish you guys the best of luck with your new businesses, and I'll be available as a resource as well. So hopefully you guys have a nice day, and maybe we'll do some business in the future together. Thank you guys. Bye.